But in the here and now, quite clearly, the US playbook is hardball, knives out. That's the negotiating mode. They've been doing that with the Swiss, and now they're doing it with the Indians. So President Trump seems to mean it here, following through with additional 25% punitive tariffs on India for importing Russian oil. As you pointed out in the headline, remember this is on top of the 25% imposed about a week ago on Indian imports. Curiously, let's bring in China again. The executive order didn't impose any extra tariffs on China.
Which also buys a heck of a lot of oil from Russia.
The biggest importer of Russian oil. Though Trump rather cryptically said that it could happen. So watch this space. However, there is a silver lining here, and that silver lining is the 21 days that it takes for these tariffs, these additional 25% tariffs to come into effect. So perhaps that might be enough time and enough of a grace period for negotiators and diplomats on both sides to get round a table and start talking. India, for its part, is not backing away from buying Russian oil. The Foreign Ministry issued a rather tersely worded statement saying that saying its decisions are based on energy security and the national interest.
So what is going on in terms of negotiations and the talks right now between U.S. and India? I was given to understand, or I've seen some reports that part of the reason they were close, right? So close that India felt confident enough to tell their media, look, guys, it's going to be 15%, we'll be okay. Right. And one of the reasons given for the whole deal unraveling at the last second was there was no direct contact between Trump and Modi. What about now? Who's talking to who?
I think that's an important part of the equation. So what a lot of former diplomats and trade negotiators on both sides have been telling me is, look, both of these leaders, Modi and Trump, need to get on a call, urgently need to get on a call and resume a hotline and talk to each other. And this really seems to be what's happening with the Swiss. It's an interesting parallel because the Swiss President Karin Keller-Sutter has gone directly to the United States to try to hash out some sort of deal and concessions. So many observers are saying that this is what needs to happen next. An important date is August the 25th. That's when US negotiators are scheduled to be in India for 4-day talks, marking the 6th round of US-India negotiations. They have failed to secure a deal, of course, before the August 1st deadline. And so maybe that might lead to a breakthrough. Always useful to know the dramatis personae here. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, Chief Negotiator Rajesh Agarwal have represented India. USTR Jameson Greer, Brendan Lynch, the Assistant US Trade Representative for South and Central Asia. It's not exactly clear who is going to be taking point on August the 25th. And there's another issue here. So in the meantime, working the back channels and Trump-splaining, if you will, to the trade partners what exactly is going on here and the rationale behind what is going on here, and an off-ramp within that 21-day hiatus period will be crucial. But the problem, Martin, is on-the-ground negotiations are going to be that much more complicated in India because there is no US ambassador in New Delhi. They do have a chargé d'affaires, Jorgen Andrews, so he will be called upon to represent the US interests on the ground. But without a doubt, this is going to complicate efforts to salvage a trade deal. What I will say, I know I have to wrap up, but what I will say is this. It's very clear, isn't it, in the conversation that you've been having, that Trump needs a win. He needs a big win. Arguably, time is running out. His opinion ratings are falling in the polls. Plus, we're getting further to midterms, which is going to be absolutely crucial. But it seems that he is so desperate to get a win on the war in Ukraine and Russia pulling out of Ukraine that he's willing to sacrifice India. He's willing to sacrifice a trade deal with India in order to do so, which is deeply problematic when you consider what is at stake here for the world's biggest economy and a deal with the world's 5th largest economy. And let's also not forget there are ramifications for Indian businesses in India, everything from Nike to Tesla more recently and Apple. You've got to wonder whether if things get worse is India going to retaliate? Is India going to make life more difficult for those companies doing business in India?
Okay, we'll be watching those talks. The U.S. team arrives in India the 25th, is that
talks,
right?
August the 25th
right,
to the 29th.
And that's just less than a week before Modi heads to Tianjin in China for the SEO summit. And by the way, President Putin is visiting India at some stage as well.